Hello, and welcome to Confessions of a Terrible Leader, where real leaders share the raw truth about the lessons they learned the hard way, so you don't have to. Join our host, Layci Nelson, founder of Transcend Leadership Collective and former terrible leader. Every leader can become worthy of being followed if they are willing to put in the work. On this podcast, we share the messy stories and behind-the-scenes reality of what the work actually entails. We welcome you to this community of revolutionary leaders who believe honest communication, healthy conflict, and building cultures of acceptance, respect, and trust are not only possible, but non-negotiable for cultivating world-class teams. Welcome back to Confessions of a Terrible Leader. I am your friendly neighborhood podcast producer, Mary Scott, here with our fearless leader today, Layci Nelson, president, founder, all the things of Transcend Leadership Collective. Layci, once again, welcome back to your very own show.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you. Feels good to be back. Feels good to be here.
Excellent. So today we have entered a very special season, a very special time of year, known around here as planning season, also known around here as it's time for SQA, which stands for strategic planning, quarterly planning, and annual planning.
Yes.
Each of these does indeed present a unique component of planning. So we're just going to do rapid fire here. Layci, tell us a little bit about each component, and let's go ahead and start with strategic planning. What is it? What's the scope? What can we expect when we enter into strategic planning?
Absolutely. Okay. Well, strategic planning is the starting point. So when an organization says, we want you to come in and work with us to facilitate our annual planning session, or help us to clarify priorities, the first thing I'm going to say is, when's the last time you updated your strategic plan and can I see it? And so that is the starting clarification point, because you cannot plan around something when you haven't done the work to get all of the ducks in a row, everybody aligned. When we're done, your strategic plan is on like a one-page document, because those big 40-page plans, first of all, I really don't think they're relevant anymore because things change so fast. So that if you are laying out this big, elaborate 10-year, exactly how we're going to get there plan, it's actually not serving you or your people very well, because those steps are likely going to be obsolete within 2 years of forming the plan because of how fast everything changes and technology.
Yes.
So that said, what's on this one pager, we call it the true north for the North Star, the guiding star for your organization. So on there are your core values. We take you through a process of identifying core values. And if you have them, we litmus test them through a couple exercises, making sure that they're relevant, that they're real, that they're not simply aspirational or pay to play, like you feel like you're supposed to have them, but they're actually true and unique to the organization and they're authentic. We run through that. Then we do kind of an inverse look at what is your mission and vision. And we ask it in a different way. We ask, what is it that you do and how do you deliver that? Or how do you do it? And it facilitates a discussion. Again, the whole leadership team is involved with this process. So it really makes sure that everyone has an aligned, in-depth understanding of what the core delivery, what the core service is, what are you all about? It sounds like up front, oh, that should be simple. But actually, we oftentimes end up spending some time here with organizations to make sure that everyone on the leadership team is fully aligned with what they're doing and how the service is delivered. We may say here at Transcend, we help people with leadership and communication, but that is not what it says on our plan. It's much more articulated with how we do it. What are the methodologies? And it also begins to remind us all of the why as well.
Yeah.
So we go through that process. And then we do some long-term vision casting, because that is important, but we're not going to work out tons of detail in that. We're going to pick a time frame, usually no more than 10 years out, especially right now. Although we do have some unique cases We had one organization that planned for the next 100 years. They had a reason for it.
Sure. That's amazing.
Yeah, they cast that vision, and it was all about a belief in their methodology that was so firm that they wanted it to exist in 100 years,
100 years.
So
okay.
that was pretty bold.
Wow. Lord, grant me that confidence.
Right?
Sorry, continue.
It was great. It was great. It was a nonprofit. They rallied around it. They were really all for it.
I love it.
Most organizations pick about a 10-year frame, and then you set, it should feel like slightly terrifying and exhilarating all at the same time when you say it out loud.
Yes.
It should be a bit audacious. Absolutely. And it is this goal around the impact that you want to have as an organization. For some people, it's a number like people served, or for some people, it's a bottom line. Like we're really hitting a goal to get to this amount of revenue in alignment with what they've just stated above. And so there's no wrong one. The key is to get to the one that resonates with everyone that is part of that leadership team, because you all have to stand behind it when you leave the room. And so it's really getting to what is this long-term vision? And it also is going to shape all of the things I just talked about, what you say yes to and what you say no to. Because really a healthy, thriving organization that begins to suffer typically doesn't suffer because of starvation, but indigestion. They're saying yes to everything. You can't say yes to everything because with every yes, there's a no for opportunity cost, right?
Right.
So it's getting extreme clarity on what are the right things to say yes to, what are the right things to say no to move us where we want to go.
Sure.
If organizations, if everyone in the leadership team isn't unified, there's no way that people out in the rest of the organization can speak to that. One of the things that a strategic plan does extremely well is it brings to the surface and smokes out right away where you have a lack of clarity. And any organization, if we were to walk into an organization and ask 3 people on the floor, what are your organization's main priorities this year? Almost every organization, they're not going to be aligned. The people aren't going to have the same answers.
Yeah.
And what this does is it gets everybody rowing in the same direction with the same language, with the same way of understanding what a win looks like. And how do you know? How do you know if you hit your goal? Measurability is also important. We then take everybody through on the leadership team this process of what makes you unique. What makes you stand out? And if you're an organization that is a service-based organization and you say customer service, I'm going to say no. Everybody says that. Tell me more.
Yeah.
What about your customer service? So it's digging really deep into those layers.
Yeah.
For example, our response, Mary, you were part of this beautiful, brilliant, what makes us unique as we were working through our own planning process. We really do value, we have white glove customer service. And we deliver an excellent product. When we show up and train, we have a requirement we track every single week what our average workshop rating is. And then we know if it falls below a certain level, we need to immediately address it. So we started digging into how do we have those high numbers because we get great scores. We want to continue to do that. What keeps us high? Engaged people are people that are learning and applying. And we recognized one of the things that makes us unique is, as you put it in your beautiful, artful way, we break the fourth wall.
Yeah.
That goes a lot deeper than saying we always are providing engaging training or we have white glove customer service. So anyone familiar with the theater world or performance world, breaking the fourth wall. Mary, I've been talking nonstop. What's breaking the fourth wall?
Sure. Yes, it is helpful if you have some familiarity with the theater or any arts performance world. Breaking the fourth wall is really describing that magical moment when the performer is so deeply engaged and so, I guess you could say, so incredibly aligned and in the zone, all of those things, so focused in expressing the work that it's like whatever barrier, whatever imaginary barrier there is between the performer and the audience, that's broken. And it's like the audience becomes a part of the performance. They are a participant. And it's just one of the most vibrant, alive feelings like you could experience. Instead of feeling like, well, I'm just here, sitting here, passively taking in information. Something special happens. That fourth wall gets broken. You become a part of it.
And that is what we shoot for every single time.
Yes.
So that is a very vibrant way to explain what sets us apart, what makes us unique. Now, the other thing we need to say is that this strategic plan is not public facing.
Right.
So you're not creating a document that the whole world needs to understand. You're creating a document that your team needs to be bought into, you understand, and it guides your work.
Yep.
We probably talk about ours more than most people because, well, it's part of what we do. And I don't talk about our clients' strategic plans because that's confidential.
Privacy and all that.
And all that.
Yes.
Another example of really thinking it through and getting a layer deeper as you're building your strategic plan and what sets you apart, what makes you unique, what do you say yes to, what do you say no to? I mean, we could say something like, we always incorporate cutting edge methodologies and we stay up to date. We do all those things.
Mm-hmm.
We capture that actually in part of our 10-year vision explanation.
Mm-hmm.
But we go a step further in really linking it to our what are we all about foundationally, the why. Every piece of curriculum that we write, that we create, co-create with organizations, we are guiding it through the perspective and the lens of what impact is it going to have on the everyday work life of the least influential employee in the company?
Mm-hmm.
And that goes a long way towards avoiding some of the, or at least bringing hyper awareness to some of the unhealthy patterns that can happen in an organization where the people that work the front lines or boots on the ground feel like, what are they even doing? Does anyone even care I work here? All that to say, we love strategic planning because it sets the direction for the organization. It sets you on your way to the true north. And then we take it a step further with the implementation process, which starts to get into the annual planning and the next phase.
Yes, exactly. So everything you're describing, it's all about laying down a incredibly strong and clear foundation for any organization. And if they don't have that, it doesn't really make moving into something like quarterly or annual planning, it doesn't really make that accessible. Like you have to have those foundational elements in place. So let's say I've got my foundational elements in place. We've done the strategic planning. I am ready to move into quarterly/annual. So can you sum that up for us, please?
Well, I sure can. So when we do strategic planning with an organization for the first time, they actually also get an annual plan at the end of the process.
Nice.
We don't just say, here's your strategic plan, bye.
Right.
We say, here's the strategic plan you've co-created. And by the time we're done, you're going to have an annual plan that you're going to start working towards. And then in that process of that annual plan, it's picking the most important goals for the year, making sure that they're in alignment with everything that you just laid out. And then it's getting a real firm, solid understanding of who's accountable to what. And every single piece of the plan has a name next to it of someone on that leadership team that isn't necessarily, they're not responsible for doing all the work all by themselves to drive that outcome. But what they are committing to is saying, I'm essentially going to be the project manager that doesn't let this drop.
Yeah.
And if we do pause it or we do decide we're going to go in a different direction, it's done with intention, not just what so often happens. Oh, we had this one initiative once and then we don't really know what happened.
Right.
And that's not good for morale, by the way.
No.
That's really not good for morale for anyone. So we set you up and then each department then will be encouraged, hey, take this to your teams and everyone on your team should have something that they know that they're contributing towards for the larger good. It gets the entire company into alignment and rowing in the same direction.
Yeah.
Most leaders, when we walk into a leadership team and it's our first few sessions with them, getting to know them, they wildly overestimate. This isn't hyperbole. They wildly overestimate the amount of clarity that they're providing for their teams.
Yeah.
They think everybody is on the same page. They think that everyone knows what the most important priorities are for the year. But from experience, I can tell you that they oftentimes are not speaking a language that their people understand. And even around the table, when we start unpacking things, they're not in alignment with that leadership team. So this is a really critical tool to get everybody on board with, first of all, the buy-in factor, because you're co-creating this with the leadership team. If it's one person in a room by themselves and then they're dumping it on people, that is not the way to do effective planning. It just becomes this top-down, no one feels like they're actually part of it. It's just something that's done to them.
Yeah.
and engagement and commitment is super low. And no wonder they don't remember anything.
Right.
They weren't part of it. So once you get that annual plan in place and we're setting revenue goals, we're doing the traditional stuff like revenue goals, profit margin goals, measurables, but we're also going, what are those priorities that you set up for the company? What are you going to do this year to move yourself in that direction?
Yep.
And how are you going to know it worked? So we get really granular, like brass tacks, around how do we implement? And then there's tools we introduce. We build out with the organization. You're going to walk away with a scorecard so everybody knows every single week where you're at with those important metrics. How healthy are we? Or do we need to like have some intervention in an area before it's too late or before it's, we can't turn it around?
Yeah.
You're also going to walk out with understanding what are the ways that we're going to hold each other accountable in a way that feels very mutual accountability, mutual transparency. And we introduce a goal tracker system. And we really dive into the difference between a tactical and a strategic meeting.
Mm-hmm.
If you're having strategy meetings every week with your people, you're driving them nuts.
Mm-hmm.
You're not supposed to have weekly strategy meetings.
Right.
Or what happens is you never differentiate between a strategic and a tactical meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And the meetings just feel really mushy. And people are like, why are we here? Every time we walk away with something different we're supposed to be doing. This is so confusing. We really bring clarity to the process and give outlines of this is what you do when to avoid unintentionally. No one wakes up in the morning and is like, I would love to light money on fire today and confuse my team and tell them to focus on things that aren't what we really need to focus on.
Right. Yeah.
But we so often as leaders do that without taking the time. It's totally on accident.
Yeah.
But we have to take the time to really work through what are the most important things and articulating it in a way that everybody in the whole organization is on board with it. So that happens in the strategic planning process. And then, like I said, when you hire us to strategically plan, or if you do it for yourself, you shouldn't be done until you have your annual plan.
Yeah.
Take it through to that next step.
Mm-hmm.
Implementation is often where everything falls apart.
Sure.
Then we have our regular cadences, right? You're having weekly tactical meetings where you're checking in. It's very structured. Walk you through how to do that. You're making sure it's the brass tacks.
Yeah.
Are we getting stuff done? But you're not rehashing strategy in those meetings.
Right.
And you keep them to a limited time. Strategy development is once a quarter. And that's where we get into quarterly planning.
Yeah.
So, all right, Mary, what has not been clear? I have been talking.
No, I feel like we've done a good job extrapolating all the information of strategic versus annual versus quarterly. We can reiterate that, strategic lays all the foundations. And if you do your planning with Transcend, we literally walk you through all of that.
Yeah.
You will leave with extreme clarity. You have your next steps. You have all the things in order. And we don't just leave you. We check back in. And of course, how you choose to engage with us in the future is up to you. But if you are new to strategic planning or any of that, please feel free to reach out to us. I can drop a scheduling link in the show notes. In fact, I will drop a scheduling link in the show notes. That's a promise. Even just if you're curious, just reach out.
Yeah.
Don't leave planning to chance. You deserve your big dreams to come true.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. And ideally, you want to have your annual plan done before the first quarter.
Yes.
Now, organizations that are like, hey, we actually have all that stuff in line that you talked about in the strategic plan. Well, that's awesome. Then I'm just going to read it over and then we can facilitate annual planning for you.
Sure.
Or maybe you have part of it, but you don't have all of it. We're not going to say you have to start completely over, chuck all the work you've done.
Right.
Let's look at what you have. Let's see where you have gaps. We'll fill those gaps and then we will work towards a really awesome annual planning session.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of ways to, I was going to say skin the cat, but that's so gross. What's another way to say that?
We offer a fully customizable experience.
There we go. That's way better.
No cats involved.
No harming of any cats in this process.
That's for sure. Yes, a completely customizable approach. We can work with you wherever you are in the process.
Right.
We'll get you to where you want to be.
Yes. And for people that have never been through it and then experience it, Mary, if you could just speak to, so when you came on our team, this was new to you.
Oh, yeah.
This was not something that you had been through before.
Nope.
Can you just give, from your perspective as someone who's a team member,
Sure.
what this whole process, the strategic, the annual, the quarterlies, and then our weekly check-ins, how has that impacted you as a team member who's responsible for some pretty big outcomes on this team?
Yes. So my first experience was a quarterly planning session when I first came aboard Transcend Leadership Collective. And it is true that I had never experienced anything like that before. It's become something I've really learned to lean on. You know, when we get to the end of a quarter, even if you're really organized, it's not unusual to feel a little like I'm kind of floating in space.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing that there's always the quarterly planning session to look forward to gives me confidence that we're going to have a great reset. We're going to really get back on track with refining the vision, the goals, and our weekly tacticals. Those are not superfluous. Those are extremely important. We engage with the scorecard every single week, update all of our various deliverables. So I always have a direction. And everybody on the team always has a direction. And that's just invaluable. Less floating in space, the better.
Right.
And because we do all these foundational things, by the time we come around to our annual meeting, it is not overwhelming. It doesn't feel like, oh gosh, here's the annual. It's going to take us 10 years. No, because we've already put in those foundational steps. And annual is just, okay, let's revisit who we are. We kind of come at it like big picture, kind of refining that. So if you have all of those steps in place, planning, it can be very effective and it doesn't have to be overwhelming. And more importantly, it's not a waste of time.
Yes.
Yeah. Time is money.
Yes, it is. Literally.
It really is. Yeah.
Literally. So that is excellent. I just love to let our clients know we implement all this in-house. This isn't just something we teach and then we don't practice.
Oh, that would be so bad.
It would be so bad. We run the organization. I run the organization this way. And I myself am included in the transparency of I've got numbers I'm accountable to.
Right.
And my whole team knows what they are.
Yep.
And that also, also goes a long way for building trust and building that sometimes you can feel as a leader of the organization, no one even knows what I do. Like, do they think I'm just hanging out, sipping my coffee and partying all day?
Right.
And while it is true, no one will ever fully understand the seat until they're in it. It's kind of like having kids, right?
Yep.
You don't get it till you've had them.
Nope.
No matter how many books you read.
And having pets is not the same.
No.
Sorry.
No matter how many books you read, how many friends you've seen have kids, like you're just never ready. You don't know what it's like.
No, you're never ready.
Same thing for leading an organization.
Yeah, for sure.
However, it does really take a lot of the loneliness feeling out of it, of being like, oh, no one knows what I'm doing. I'm
isolation.
I get rooted on just like I root them on because I'm sharing. That is extremely valuable for all of us. And it makes sure that it maintains alignment.
Yep.
Okay, we've talked a long time about this, Mary.
Yeah, about planning, for sure.
We have. I could still keep going, but we don't want to bore everyone.
No, you've got yourselves a 101 in what we do for strategic, quarterly, and annual planning. Again, if you're curious, don't hesitate to reach out.
Yeah.
Lacey, I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate you breaking it down for our wonderful listeners, and we appreciate you, listeners, very much. Feel free to leave us a review. It's very helpful if you leave us a review on iTunes. It really helps with the reach of the podcast, which we are delighted to deliver to you at no cost. And Lacey, would you see us out with our beloved mantra?
Absolutely. Until next time, go manage like a leader.
Thanks for being part of this community of revolutionary leaders who believe honest communication, healthy conflict, and building cultures of acceptance, respect, and trust are not only possible, but non-negotiable for cultivating world-class teams. If one-to-one coaching, engaging workshops, or strategic planning that is actually useful are anything that interests you, make sure to head over to transcendleadershipcollective.com to check out our free resources. Confessions of a Terrible Leader is hosted by Lacey Nelson and produced by Mary Scott. Music is by Leif Olson and Mary Scott from the band The Number of Months. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe and leave us a review. And until next time, go manage like a leader.